Um, really happy to see all you here today. I'm going to speak for a few minutes and then we can maybe ask a few questions and respond to it. Addressing the needs of individuals with autism, other developmental issues is, for me and my family, deeply personal because my stepson is developmentally disabled. He has developmental disabilities and schizophrenia and a little bit of a cerebral palsy condition. And as we've gone through the process over the last few years in the Capitol, trying to explain what the regional center does, what the system does, it's very difficult because in the Capitol, power politics dominates. Power politics dominates, financial contributions, influence, all those kinds of things. The actual issue of looking at Developmental Disabilities Department, who is the main political action committee that advocates for the Department of Developmental Services? Who is advocating for the regional centers? It's the people in the state of California. It's not the people in Sacramento, it's the people in the state of California, especially the people that have family members that care about their family members, that are worried, and so forth. So the number of individuals we see in the department is increasing, 300,000 people. It's going to go up. I'll just relate a story I had a few weeks ago. We have a special session now on healthcare and to look at the Department of Developmental Services. Special session means that we can continue to work through the fall. And a couple weeks ago, I met with the budget director of the state of California. I said, well, do you understand sort of how the Latterman Act was created and how we came to this concept of a regional center? Regional centers were created by family members. If you remember, before we had the Latterman Act, we had just groups of family members forming, I can call them cooperatives, little nonprofits to serve the kids that were in the developmental disabilities community. So they don't get that. They don't understand that the regional centers are an organization that came from the bottom up, not from the top down. And they have a hard time understanding that in terms of the budget. Because they want to command and control, they want to make sure that they can control everything. So they formed a committee on rates and things like that. Now, what's the impact? Well, I've introduced a bill, you can write this down, SB 2X1. The bill requires a 10% increase for the Department of Developmental Services, a 10-year sustainability plan to be developed for the department so we can see, like over the long range, what's going to happen. And I think that's the approach we need to have. We need to find funding. The amount of funding is, for the budget, not a lot. If we had $300 to $400 million, that's not a lot in the state budget. It was $120 billion. We could take care of this right away. So, just yesterday, I chaired a committee in Los Angeles on housing and homelessness, and guess what? There's no surprise. They're starting to see homeless that are developmentally disabled because the programs are closing. They're starting to see homeless in Los Angeles. They started talking about it yesterday. And it kind of reminds me, I'll just end with this, it kind of reminds me of this case here in San Jose, in our area, where we had a young woman. She was in Lucille Packard Hospital, and the parents were seeking help because they couldn't get her out of Lucille Packard Hospital. You know what I'm talking about? They couldn't get, she got into Packard, but they couldn't find a place for her to live after she left. So there wasn't any place for her to be referred to because they found out that the San Andreas Regional Center had closed so many places they couldn't find a location for her. And, you know, we talk about moral situations, we talk about budget solutions, but the bottom line is, why isn't this a high priority? What's the reason? So that's what I'm talking to my colleagues about. And I admit I haven't been totally successful. I get a lot of people that say, oh yeah, we support that, but then when it comes time to pushing the button on what's the most important issues, it isn't there. So we got to continue the struggle. It's going to be a long struggle. And I'm going to continue it. So I'll answer a few questions. Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead.
You hearing me now? There we go.
I got you.
We were put into special session because the governor says he needs new revenues. And what that in effect does is take us and put us in a 2/3 vote category in order to get any action at all. The Developmental Disabilities Service System has been funded for 45 years in this state out of the general fund. And suddenly we're being offered up as the pawn in this argument between Republicans, Democrats, everybody and the governor, and on it goes. And you know this better than anyone here. My question is, why can't we simply take the legislative leadership as it exists right now, put a bill to fund our 10% out of the general fund and put it on the governor's desk and let him take the heat? It's the only thing that's happening now is that nobody's responsible and everybody's pointing the other way.
Well, yeah, that's a good question. SB 2X1 would be the bill. It would be just say you have to fund 10% increase. You know, they'll cost out the bill. It'll be a $400 million, $300 million. But you know, when we do that, we'll get $150 million, $200 million from the federal government as well. So it is. It actually is a viable option. Now, how do you fund it? Well, you know, there's $117 billion in the budget. Maybe we can ask each department to take a less than a 1% haircut. You know, I don't have much hair up here, but take a haircut in the Department of Corrections. You know, they got people in the Department of Corrections that are developmentally disabled now. They're starting to receive, you know, because of what I talked about. They're in the Department of Corrections. I went to one prison. I'm going to San Quentin next week. They have brown uniforms, and they walk around with DD on the back of their uniform. You see what I'm saying? I mean, what, you know, we're sinking to a new low here, right? So I think making departments cut back a little bit to fund the priority that we think this is, you know, a high priority. Another thing, getting mad is good, okay? Getting mad is good. You got some mad people here, right there. This woman right here, over here, she's stand up. Jackie. She's mad. She comes down and pounds the pulpit. I think that's good. You know what we got to do? I'm thinking about how to get the attention, and as they say, I think it's time for shutdown time in the Capitol. I think we got to say we're not actually going to vote for any more budgetary increases for anybody until you solve this problem. No more money. If you want some money, you got to take care of this issue first. And you know what happens in the budget? We approve a budget, and then they come back in January and they propose adjustments. But between the time we approve the budget, some of these departments, what they do is they kind of overspend their budget, and then they come back and ask for an adjustment. No mas. We shut them down. We say no more money. You fund it through your existing budget.
Let's take one more question,
Yeah.
Senator. One more question.
Yeah, right there. Go ahead.
Could you comment, please, on the recent passage of approval to fund in federal correction institutes sex change operations and
Sex change operation.
yeah, or the sex change operations for those in the penal system, whereas we can't get funding for our own institutions to try to, like regional centers, to try to assist our clients. And it just seems unconscionable to me.
I don't know much about it. It's a federal court issue. State court issue. Here's what I'll say about this. If you got $117 billion, there's a lot of money spent. How many people think that we're not wasting money? Raise your hand. Okay? So you can always find, it's not so much that this stuff isn't important to somebody, it's that what we're doing here, providing care for people that have developmental disabilities, care for people in some cases, they just can't care for themselves, they need care. That should be on the A list, not on the C list, you know what I'm saying? It should be up there at the top. We take care of this first before we take care of other things. So that's what I mean by shutdown time. We got to have the shutdown time mentality. Hey, why are you funding, this or that? That's an example. Maybe, I don't know, there's some people who would say they have a right to it. That's a legal issue. For me, it's a matter of where you spend the money. It's a priority. I think it's time for shutdown time. And I'll say this. I'm ashamed to be a Democrat up there sometimes. As a Democrat Party member, I'm ashamed that the Democrat Party and our leaders haven't taken a stronger stand. And of course, I won't say anything about the Republicans, but I'm ashamed the Democrat leadership in the legislature hasn't taken a stronger stand on just saying we want this to be on the A list, not on the C list. Okay?
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much.